what is visceral mobility? Visceral mobility is the range of motion the organs move within the hard frame. It's determined by ligaments, diaphragm, and pressures within the containers. Just like the organism, the whole body, if mobility is diminished, then the function will be affected over time. So we know that sedentarism, right, being sedentary, is like a very high risk for mortality, right? When we stop moving, or lose the ability to move, our likelihood of not being well goes up very high. And this is true also on a more micro level of the organs and even a micro level of the cells within the organ themselves. Everything needs movement in order to maintain its vitality and its health. So organs, the way they connect within the tissues, one, they're like pressurized, right? The negative pressure in our thorax helps to lift all the organs in our abdomen and pelvis, but also they're attached, the ligaments, to the skeleton. And so this means that there is like joints under there. So just like the ankle joint articulate, the two bones of the ankle joint articulate with all these ligaments and need to move, the ankle joint needs to move for function. Same thing happens in your liver and your diaphragm. It makes a joint. And the liver and the diaphragm have to move like a joint in order to allow good movement of the body. And that's a great example of like what part of the body then would that movement globally relate to in an osteokinematic standpoint. It would be trunk flexion, trunk rotation, trunk side bending is dictated by the ability for that deeper joint of the liver and the diaphragm to go, right? With that said, the same thing that limits mobility in the musculoskeletal system in the joints, right? Not going through full ranges of motion, not moving, being sedentary, or injury, right? Damage to the tissues, injury that often happens with some sort of whiplash type motion. Like whiplash is not just car accidents. Whiplash is a motion of energy being applied to the body and reverberating throughout it. That's what creates disruption in tissue during injuries, pathology, etc. Right? That scar tissue, that sedentariness, that locks down our mobility, and it does so in the organs as well. So when we have limited mobility in organs, our organ function starts to diminish. It reminds me of like if you ever played like Mortal Kombat or like Street Fighter, and as you're fighting somebody and like things are happening to your body, your life force energy, like your life on your guy starts to go down, right? The battery life goes down. Same thing is happening. When we start to lose our mobility, the function, the vitality of that organ starts to be limited. This is also too why I think, I always go back to like, well, why is exercise just like so good for the body? Like, why is exercise so good? And of course, like people are like, oh, it's the endorphins. Oh, it's the cardiovascular benefits. Oh, it's the joint mobility. But also because all of that stuff also keeps our organs moving because our organs are connected to our skeleton. And so when we keep our organs moving, they keep functioning at a higher level. And that helps us to survive. Which is why, again, why exercise can be so powerful. So visceral motility is a little bit different than visceral mobility. Visceral motility is an expansion and contraction of the cells of an organ. It has a pattern and rhythm that mimics the pattern of migration from the midline during embryological development. So everything's connected. We started as one cell, and as the cells multiply and divide, it happens in the midline, and then it travels out to the borders to become the organs, to become the parts of the body, right? The different tissues. And so that rhythm, which is a constant rhythm of movement away from midline, but then a contraction and expansion, right? Of folding and unfolding is how the embryo creates the fetus and develops into a little human. That is a remembered pattern that stays in our cells. And so you can actually feel it with your hands. And our motility is also eventually what makes up the mobility. So the mobility of our organs are a bigger version of the pattern of motility. So the motility of the organ, and again, this relates to just the cellular motion too, has to do with the vitality of the organ. But as the mobility, like we just talked about, as the mobility is limited, then the cellular expansion pattern gets limited as well, and vitality starts to diminish. This is like one of the most golden parts of this lecture for you. This is a great picture of the viscerosomatic reflexes. So these are the sympathetic and parasympathetic connections to all the organs at the different levels of the spine. So remember how I said that why I think Pilates is so powerful, because it does segmental spine mobility and it understands how to maximize mobility through all those 25 to 32 moving parts. Well, when you do that, you are positively affecting every single one of these structures, because the sympathetic and parasympathetic connections are going to dictate how well the organ is functioning. This is also a way for us who don't know how to directly do visceral manipulation, how you can still affect the viscera. You know how to mobilize the spine at these different levels, or maybe even know manual therapy to the spine at these different levels. So if you think your liver is not moving very well, then you can go to T5 to T9 and do some things there, and I bet you your liver will start moving better. Okay? So this is also this is why this becomes such a powerful slide to use as a reference, because this gives you access to ways to treat the body in ways that you didn't maybe consider before. So some general visceral referrals. So pain referrals happen. So here's the thing about the viscera. The visceral organs, they don't have a whole lot of nerves to them. And so messages from the visceral organs to the brain when something is not right gets a little muddied about what's going on, and often then is represented by somatic pain in our musculoskeletal system. This is very well known from a heart standpoint. Most of you know that the signs of a heart attack are left arm pain, jaw pain, chest pain, and upper back pain. But all the organs have these viscerogenic referrals. And so, and it's not just when they're about to shut down, like a heart attack. It can just be when they're not moving very well that they give these mixed messages to the brain. So the common ones are listed here. With that said, the body, when it goes into a protective pattern around these organs, remember one of the principles was that the body hugs the lesion. And so then you could also have aches and pains and movement dysfunctions in different parts of the body because of the change in posture and dynamic alignment organized around that structure. So these are just classic viscerogenic referrals based on the nerves relationships. Whereas what comes up when we actually use the locator test assessment protocol and figure out what organ or what structure the body is protecting, we might see someone's ankle mobility completely change after I treat their right side of their lung. There's not a viscerogenic connection, but there's a dynamic alignment connection because everything literally is connected. Okay. So even these slides are really helpful and can be a cheat sheet, right? In fact, I have these slides as a visceral referral cheat sheet that I offer as a free download, but it's not everything. This is why we still assess. We assess because we don't know how everything is connected, and we don't realize how the body organizes itself around something that is important. And so the locator test assessment protocol helps us to figure that out. But these can be just helpful ways for us to go about that, especially if you don't have something like the locator test assessment protocol but if you want to start integrating an understanding and a treatment or movement focus around the organs and see what happens, like this is a great place to start. So these next slides too show you the connections from a spine as well as referral pattern standpoint. So I don't know why I have it just on the lung, but really the C3 through 5 location is a lot of the organs, because the C3 through 5 is the nerve roots of the phrenic nerve. the nerve roots of the phrenic nerve. The phrenic nerve is one of the sensory nerves to the organs of the neck, the thorax, and the upper part of the abdomen. This is why we get so many general visceral referrals to the neck and upper extremity. This is the whole basis of my education called Never Treat the Shoulder First.